Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of In the Box. Matt, how are you doing?
What are you doing, man?
I'm just a little bit hungover because the New York Islanders have landed the first overall pick in the 2025 NHL draft. That was a horrendous bit. Electric night last night. And we just have a shit ton to talk about today on the podcast. As you can tell, we're in a new studio. Moved out of the prior place last episode. Loved last studio. We're eventually going to decorate this place too. I don't know what we're gonna do for Paviak, considering behind him's a little tough to decorate. But Matt, how are we doing?
I'm less enthused than you are about the Islanders pick. I don't know about this one. It could go a couple ways, and I'm not sure you're gonna love the ways it ends up going.
Yeah, it all depends on who they hire at president and general manager. But we got the Islanders to talk about. Sullivan fired, then shortly after hired. Rick Tocchet just says I don't want an extension. I want a new job. I don't want anything to do with Vancouver. We got Coronato signing an extension as well as Taylor Hall. First round recaps, second round preview. I know that we're recording this day after the Leafs versus Panthers game. But let's get into it first. My New York Islanders won the first overall selection. It's already caused so much debate because they're the one team that has a hometown kid that potentially could go first overall. If you've been following me for a while, you know where I stand. There's a consensus top two. I like Higgins. I actually have him fifth in my rankings. I know you're probably going to disagree with that because you like Higgins a decent amount. But I think you go best player available. I don't like the comparisons to John Tavares when looking at his situation. First off, that still wasn't a failure of a pick. They got 6 or 7 superstar seasons out of John Tavares. They just weren't able to surround him with top end talent. Still should have wanted out at the deadline where we could have traded him to get some assets. But yeah, you take Schaefer, you take Misa. We're not a Winnipeg or Calgary. No disrespect to those markets. Historically, our players do tend to stay, and basically every single player stayed under Lou Lamoriello. He maybe paid a little bit too much to keep some of those guys. But I think with the culture that Lou built, I think you just go best player available. I have more to say, but what do you think initially?
I raise a red flag at you saying you're not Winnipeg, because Winnipeg, I think about that market, I think a team that struggles to sell tickets when they're not very good and is under constant pressure from ownership to keep the finances together. The Islanders do not sell a whole lot of tickets when they're not very good. There might be serious ownership pressure to make some fun narrative move to sell tickets. It also might come into play. I expect Higgins probably to play in the NHL next season. He has 1 year of college under his belt here. Schaefer and Misa, it's a real question mark if they would play in the NHL next year. I don't necessarily think that you should make a hockey decision based on that, but that could end up coming into it.
Yeah, there's definitely something juicy to it. If we all agreed that if this was the 2023 draft, I know Bedard was near generational, but you thought Fantilli and Carlson could come in immediately and play a serious role like they did, then maybe I could be sold on the hometown kid. Not sold, I would still disagree with it, but it would be understandable. I don't think Higgins is ready for the NHL next season. Point per game, very good season at Boston College, but he was playing with Gabriel Perreault and Ryan Leonard. It's not like he was carrying the team on his back. So he's undersized too. It's not like he's this 6'3" wrecking ball. So I again, you're right. Ownership, they moved Lou Lamoriello out because of the ticket sales, because it was going down the direction of the team. But they just need to be thinking not the next 2 to 3 years, not how can we maximize the Dobson, Barzell, Sorokin core in terms of winning the next 2 to 3 years, because we're probably not winning the next 2 to 3 years. They need to be thinking long term. In terms of Winnipeg, I just mean in terms of players wanting to stay and wanting out. Jacob Trouba, you could not sell him on staying in Winnipeg. Johnny Gaudreau got offered more in a Calgary and just said I want to go back stateside. I want to be closer to home. I'll take 9.75 instead of the 8 by 10.5 that he got offered. John Tavares was more so just about going home than I don't want to be in Long Island. And it also was just because the team wasn't good enough. So yeah, I think you go Schaefer, Dobson. I don't know how. Do you still believe Dobson's the number one defenseman? Top 15?
I do not, but this comment on Schaefer has me to my next point, which is that historically, generally, defensemen do take longer to develop than forwards. That's a real enough trend. It's not true literally all the time. Rasmus Dahlin was an elite player by, year 3, let's say. But for the most part, highly drafted defensemen tend to take longer to develop. The Islanders do still have a very old team right now. And if it's going to take you a full 4 seasons to really get any benefit out of Schaefer, for him to be like an actively great player, that might not really line up with like Bo Horvat on an expensive no movement clause contract.
Yeah, I think we can agree. If we took financials out of this, the play is to like trade Horvat, trade Pajot, load up, suck next year, where you could potentially get a franchise defenseman this year in the draft and a franchise forward next year. That's unfortunately not going to happen. I think Schaefer could be ready for the NHL relatively soon. He's 6'2", skates like the wind, high IQ guy. He didn't play a lot this year, but I think whether it's Misa or Schaefer, they should play in college next year. They shouldn't play in the OHL, especially Misa. He had a goal per game and over 2 points per game. Makes no sense to go back to the OHL. But yeah, I don't see a reason why Schaefer can't be a low-end second pair guy in 2 seasons from now. Maybe you just disagree.
No, I mean, I think that's fair, but I also think it's, the Islanders are one of those teams where they're not a young rebuilding team on the upswing, like an Anaheim, like a San Jose, like Philadelphia, probably within the next year or two will really get there. The Islanders have this awkward mishmash of ages, and there's really not the youngest core player on their team who's actually a core player is Barzal. He's not particularly young. Anyone younger than him doesn't count as a core player. I'm half expecting Dobson to get traded this summer.
Yeah, there's been reports or they're not reports. There's been like people speculating
rumors
that,
let's be clear.
Like they're going to trade Dobson to get back within the 4th or 5th round pick, 4th or 5th overall pick, and get James Higgins. I don't even like the idea of trading to like 4th and 5th. That's been floated. Trade 1st overall for 4th or 5th overall, so you still get Higgins, then pick up like a late 1st round pick. I don't think it's worth it. Late 1st round picks, it's a coin flip whether you even get like an NHLer, let alone a high-end NHLer. So in order for us to trade this 1st overall pick, I'd be down to trade back to 2nd. If San Jose really wants Matthew Schaefer, I'll take Misa in the Dallas 1st round pick and like a 2nd round pick or something like that. But in terms of trading back to get Higgins, unless it's like an immediate young roster player in the 5th overall pick, in another pick on top of that, like a 2nd round pick, I could be enticed. But I do think that there is a sizable gap between Schaefer and Higgins, so you don't want to fuck that up. Schaefer be a top 10 defenseman for the next decade, and Higgins is a good 2nd-line center, like I think he's probably trending towards being.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. I wouldn't even be confident that Higgins would be there at 4 or 5. I mean, I personally have him very solidly at number 3 on my draft board. And I think that, not to give hate on anyone in particular, but I do think Porter Martone is an absolute landmine of a potential bust.
He hates Porter Martone. But the thing is, the way that it shapes up, I don't think Chicago would pick Higgins, though. Just because Bedard's kind of undersized, Hagen's undersized. I know, I'm not saying like small players
Chicago
can't work in the
is
NHL.
So bad right now. They need to best play. I'm not saying they think Hagens is the best player available, but they are so bad and have so little forward depth. They need best player available, whoever they think that is.
If they think Hagens is definitively better than those two, I'm not saying for support of Martone, but for me, Desnoyers, Frundell, Hagens are all kind of the same tier, where I probably would. I have Desnoyers 3rd, Frundell 4th. I would probably go with that. Second overall, I think we just say like San Jose, get Misa, don't overthink it. Have the best forward core from 2029 to like 2037 and just be dominant. If they have to give up some of their lower tier prospects and picks to eventually get that number 1 defenseman, you deal with that down the line. But
Agreed.
You don't galaxy brain like trade back to 9th overall and then pick like Radim Merca. You go with quality over quantity.
Agreed.
And then Chicago, Utah moving up to 4th. That is very intriguing. I think that
is it though? I mean,
in terms of a pick getting moved, like a top 5 pick getting moved.
My hesitation is that, again, not to be a Debbie Downer on this year's draft, but I'm not the only person in the world to look at the draft class this year and say, I don't know, this year's number 4 is probably equal to like 2 years ago's number 7 or 8.
That's fair. Yeah, like quality. Ryan Leonard about. Yeah, I think that's the expectation.
Do you really believe Frondell's going to be a significantly better prospect than Ryan Leonard? It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he has a worse career.
But I mean, for Utah to go from 14th overall to 4th, that's a big upgrade.
It's nice.
This draft does fall off, even though we don't love the 3 through 8. The past 12th, it's pretty dire. Like 13th through like 33 There's like no difference. Like for them to move up is going to be really exciting. They have so much salary cap space. Like I think that already they have a good shot at being a playoff team next year. The thing is, yeah, it is tough. I think they maybe should trade the pick just because they already have so many young, exciting forwards. If that makes sense. Like I don't think that this guy's going to be better than Gunther or Cooley. Not going to be better than Keller. They went. I wish that they went freaking Zane Parekh last year and then drafted a forward this year, and then they would have been like beyond set. But because they went again the last year, yeah, I think you potentially move off that pick. People are talking about the Islanders getting win now help. The Utah Hockey Club is the team that actually should do that.
I give a tangential agree, not because I think they'll make the playoffs next year or even have a really good shot at it, because I truly don't believe that.
Oh.
But they are a team where, okay, the young forward core in place, I really like what I see. This young defense core in place, there's really nothing there. It's a similar-ish situation to San Jose.
Guys, yeah.
It's different, right? I mean, you do have Sergachev, who's a legit
only
guy
26,
and
27.
will still be good when this team reaches their peak. But I do understand if Utah's looking at this like, we would really rather have a defenseman than a forward at 4. There's really not any defenseman worth taking at 4. Therefore, trading the pick is good. Versus the Islanders, it should make no difference what position they take. Chicago, it should make no difference what position they take. San Jose, there should be a preference, but you're right. Don't galaxy brain this when there's a clear top 2.
Yeah, I agree 100%. 2 other things that we got to talk about, or 3 other things. New York, I assume you agree, trade the 12th overall, or give the 12th overall pick to the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. I think that they'll might be a playoff team next year. Like it's over 50% chance that their pick is below 12th next year, but I just don't think you run the risk of potential, after we saw 2 teams jump in the lottery this year, of potentially giving the Pittsburgh Penguins a top 6 pick next year in a really, really loaded draft.
Agreed, but for me, it has much more to do with, for like the 8th time in this half hour, I'll say it, this draft really doesn't seem like it has a whole lot of future superstars in it. Next year's draft already seems a lot more exciting, so I would absolutely rather have the pick next year, regardless of the percentages, regardless of how good you think they'll be next year.
And even if you were to keep this year's pick, I think you'd have to trade it. Like it makes no sense to keep the pick and draft the guy at 12. If you kept the pick and then traded it for immediate help to make sure that you're in the playoffs next year, I somewhat could understand it. If they just go into the next season with just not having their pick at all, I think that would be absolutely ridiculous. Montreal at 16th and 17th. Do you think that they move off one of those picks? I think that they got to. They already have a pretty solid prospect pool. Get some immediate help. Try to get a second line center or something like that.
I think it depends on what's out there. It's the kind
Easier
of thing
said
where,
than done.
yeah, you could see it. I mean, some years you have out of nowhere an Alex DeBrincat or a Kevin Fiala, like, oh, there's a legit top line wing on the trade market for a mid first round pick. If that kind of opportunity presents itself, I'd probably take it. I haven't heard any like specific ideas on who you might want to trade it for. You don't trade it just to trade it just because you have guys. You can't have enough guys.
Yeah, and they can't, although it wasn't the 16th and 17th overall pick, they traded the 31st and 37th 2 seasons ago for Newhook. They need someone like established. They can't bet on somebody that's 21, 22 years old, was a former high pick.
Kirby Doc all over again.
Yes, like if they're going to move this, they're now into winning mode where they can't be dicking around. They got to get someone legit. But yeah, I agree. There's really no like top 50, top 60 players that are going to be available. Unless like Tage Thompson's like, fuck this, I'm done with Buffalo. There's really not much. A lot of teams are in good situations with their young stars. And then lastly, I also think that this, like New York, should be pretty consensus. Ottawa's got to, if they don't somehow get out of the Dodonov situation, 21st overall, you easily give up on that pick. Not saying they're going to be worse, that they're going to be worse next season and miss the playoffs, but 21st overall is in this draft is nothing.
Agreed.
All right, we're going to move on to some of the coaching firings and hirings. Mike Sullivan had a wild week, somehow not failed upwards, but just ran his course in Pittsburgh and got a better job and is now one of the highest, if not the highest paid player in the entire NHL, or highest paid coach in the NHL. Yeah, from a Pittsburgh perspective, I think this makes sense. Sullivan, if anything, was kind of like hurting the tank. They started at 7-12-4, and then they had a really decent stretch, and we're at 22-24-9 until Dubas was like, I'm trading Marcus Pettersson, and we're fully tearing this down. So, yeah, still a good coach. Impressed me at Four Nations, especially with that first game when the United States beat Team Canada. His defensive strategy was brilliant. Can he save the Rangers defense core with his defensive philosophies? I don't know, but it's definitely an inspiring hire, even though it is a recycling hire. And I think we could agree that, we don't love recycling hires.
Inspiring.
Compared to some of the other names that were floated, like John Tortorella or something like that, I think it is good. It is funny that they're going from the guy that couldn't get to the playoffs with Ovechkin in 2023 to the guy that's back-to-back years hasn't got Crosby to the playoffs. But it's definitely an upgrade, and it's a solid hire. I'd give it like a B plus. You're about to like eviscerate, which go off, man. I'm not gonna be mad. I'm not gonna defend the Rangers vehemently with this shit.
No, I mean, I don't think Mike Sullivan's an awful coach. I think, and most people don't want to hear this because most people want hot takes. He's a good coach. He's a bad coach. Most coaches are average.
Yeah.
Mike Sullivan got good results with good teams and bad results with bad teams. His main flaw is he ends up being far too loyal to the older players and not playing the young guys. If that sounds familiar, Rangers fans, it's because that also describes Laviolette, and it also describes Gerard Gallant.
It's not good for
the
Perot.
Exact same. I could copy paste that exact same 3-sentence review on the last 3 coaches that Drury has hired. The only thing this hire tells me is that the Rangers are going to do absolutely nothing except run the team back and hope for a wild card spot next year.
And it does maybe scare you that they might not give Pittsburgh the pick this year if they're like, we just got your coach. We're going to be better next season. We're going to make the playoffs. Yeah, at the end of the day, I still think the Rangers at best are a wild card team because of those 3 teams in the Metro Division right now. But, I mean, Laviolette just completely lost the locker room by the back half of the year. Zibanejad, Kreider, they didn't give a shit for the most part.
Every Rangers coach in the last 6 years has managed to lose the locker room within a year and a half. So I have very low confidence that Mike Sullivan can be different.
The first year is pretty decent for recent Ranger head coaches, though. Gallant made the Eastern Conference Finals, and Laviolette made the Eastern Conference Finals in their first run. Yeah, I think that they only have a 1 to 2 year core probably remaining with the way the Panarin kind of fell back down to earth and just how old their guys are, but you weren't hiring a first-time head coach with this old of a team and this much pressure for a guy like Chris Drury. He wasn't going to hang unless it was David Carl, which David Carl was not, which he's not taking any job, but he definitely wasn't taking the New York Rangers job with that pressure and that old of a team. But yeah, for Sullivan, get the fucking bag. I wish your family the best, but I hope that you fail at this job. And for the Rangers, it's okay. I don't know.
My take is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I don't know how Drury can expect different results from hiring the exact same coach he just fired.
Yeah, I think that he's not looking for big-time results. He's just trying to save his job, get back into the playoffs in 1 year, and Mike Sullivan potentially gives him the best chance. Another guy that he didn't get fired. He just said, I'm not signing an extension, is Rick Tocchet. He got offered like a 5-year deal in like the mid-$5 millions to make him one of the highest paid coaches in the NHL. And he was like, nah, I don't want the Canucks job. It's not that appetizing. This year was an absolute shit show from the players and the management. Tocchet deserves some blame, but I do blame management and the players more. And with the way that Jim Rutherford's talking about Quinn Hughes, he wants to play with his brothers. We have him for another 2.5 years. We might trade him at the deadline or something like that. Like, it is such a tire fire. The fact that they were actually a pretty cheap ownership was willing to give him this big of an extension, and he was just like, nah. I don't mean to be so low on the Canucks, but like I think they have one of the worst like 5 to 7 year outlooks. Just because I'm already penciling him in almost Quinn Hughes leaving, so I don't blame Tocchet and whoever gets this. This is probably going to be a first-time head coach that goes there and just gets slaughtered, or some kind of recycled head coach that gets denied by every single job and just says, "Okay, I can get a check here."
Yeah, I mean, agree there on Vancouver's rough outlook. I don't think anything that happened this year is really Tocchet's fault per se. I mean, you know, maybe you would say it is on the coach to not have these huge locker room beefs like the one between Miller and Pettersson. But frankly, Vancouver bet on the wrong horse, it seems, by keeping Pettersson and trading Miller. I mean, I don't know what exactly you expect Tocchet to do when his starting goalie missed 70% of the year, when the team traded away their leading scorer from last season in December or January, whenever it was, when their highest paid player just cannot be motivated to show up.
19 points in his final 37 games.
So brutal. I mean, it's they in the first place they well overachieved in
Yeah.
2024, and everyone should have been expecting some level of regression even without injuries. But they're in a bizarre spot right now. Vancouver doesn't really have any option probably except to find some sort of coach that can bring something out of Elias Pettersson. Like at bare minimum, pump up his value to be able to trade him, or otherwise just like accept your fate in tanking. I think a lot of hockey Twitter has kind of been assuming that Quinn Hughes would go to the Devils when he's a free agent. It's absolutely insane for the team's GM to be like publicly admitting that like,
He needs to
yes,
have
we
his phone
have
taken
more
away.
or less accepted our fate on this one. We have Quinn until he hits the UFA year. Then he's going to sign with the Devils. There's nothing we can do about it. And of course, from that perspective, the Devils management is probably pretty aware of that reality. The Devils management has really no incentive to offer a nice trade package for him when they can just wait and sign him.
Yeah, right now they'd probably have to give up, like rightfully so, like Bratt, Mercer, even though Mercer's kind of been underwhelming, a first round pick, Nemitz or
Nemec,
something.
for
Yeah,
sure.
something like that. Verse in a year and a half from now at the deadline, they could probably get away with like maybe even offload Timo Meyer if the Canucks want to stay competitive in a first round pick and like Seamus Casey. Like there's people are talking about that trade. Makes no sense right now for the New Jersey Devils considering they're the team that's actually in the playoffs. They're the team that has the two brothers and Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes appear to really enjoy being New Jersey Devils. And I'm sure Quinn Hughes likes it as well right now, at least when they're winning. But yeah, for Vancouver, I think the Pittsburgh and the Kraken job might be worse just because you know you're probably going to stink the next 2 to 3 years. Vancouver, you can maybe salvage it, but they're definitely in that tier compared to Philadelphia or what we thought with New York, where there could be a turnaround and something could happen relatively soon.
I don't see any turnaround here, and it's crazy because like 6 months ago I would have at least seen the potential for a turnaround, but the vibes are so bad it feels impossible right now.
It's all on Pettersson. If he returns to 90 points, I'm not expecting 100 points with the wingers that he's going to have. They're also losing Brock Besser, but
Yeah, Brock Besser is leaving in free agency. We know this because he's being publicly unhappy. The way that everyone in Vancouver seems to run directly to the media when they have a problem or they don't feel happy is honestly, it's fun. It gives us something to talk about, and it is like, you know,
show.
the other real sports do that. That's what happens in real sports, but it doesn't happen in hockey usually.
yeah,
so
there
it's
was
unusual.
a fan like when Besser, like, you know, when people like players are leaving the arena, like fans like stop and be like, hey, like someone like filmed or took a picture of Besser with like his window down, and like in like the passenger seat there was like a signed team jersey after their last game, so he's gone. Like he was like, I love you guys, like let's get this signed for memorabilia before I leave. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Interesting to see what Brock Besser's deal is going to look like. Tom Willander, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, good pieces. They ain't saving him anytime
Not blue
soon.
chips.
And the New Yorker and the Vancouver Canucks are looking pretty rough. Okay, moving on. Matt Coronato signed an extension with the Calgary Flames, a 7-year deal at $6.5 million. I've always been pretty high on Coronato. I think that this is a very, very good deal. Talked about it before. American players maybe not want to stay in Calgary. The fact that they locked him up, unlike Matthew Tkachuk, where it came out that like he was kind of willing to sign 8 years back in like 2018 or 2019, but Treliving was more concerned about winning right now and only signed him to that 3-year bridge. So Conroy's learning from that. Coronato was a very good prospect in his draft year. If he was like 6'1", 6'2", probably would have been a top 8 pick. Instead, went 13th overall. His track record is in his draft year, he had 48 goals, 85 points in 51 games in the USHL. In the AHL last year, he was very good in college. Then in the AHL last year, 41 points in 41 games. And this year, in his first full season, 24 goals, 23 assists, 47 points in 77 games. So like even this year, he was a very effective middle sixer, probably worth $5.5 million. He's 22 years old at this point, I believe. I see no reason why he's not at least going to be a 30-30 guy, especially if Calgary can hopefully get more semblance of a number one center for him to play with. That's like his worst case. I'm not going to act like he's going to be a 40-40 guy, but I think he could peak as an effective 35 kind of talent. So at 6.5, you just got to love it for Calgary, who's had players depart recently, and Coronato's a homegrown guy and is developing fantastically. At times, this season looked like their best forward.
Allow me to be the voice of the casual fan here. What am I missing? He had 47 points.
He's 20. It was his first. He was 21 for most of the season. Like,
I mean, it's the holdup I have is
24 goals. Like,
hold-
I get if it was like 15 goals, 32 assists or something like that. This guy's a beast.
the holdup I have is that a lot of the times when young guys have underwhelming production, it's because of deployment issues. We saw that with Lafreniere and Kako in New York. It's deployment issues, and they don't really get the line assignments or the role opportunities to put up points. That does not apply to Coronato.
Yeah, no, it was a good
Coronato
spot.
played more than 17 minutes a game this year. Coronato got significant power play time, spent quite a while on the top power play. He ended up with more power play assists than even strength assists on the season. So I'm
Goal
not
scorer.
necessarily sure that I see what other people see as far as just like, oh, it's an absolute lock that he will grow significantly better than this.
I would get what you're saying if he was on like a bottom 5 team and just like all offense. He's not some defensive stalwart, but like just skating out there, only looking for offense, scoring irrelevant goals. But he was the 3rd or 4th best forward. I know their offense wasn't that good, but best forward on a team that was playing important games until the last week of the regular season. He is very skilled, has a very underrated shot. Well, not that underrated. He scored 24 goals. I don't know. Like for Calgary, I think it just makes sense. We agree they're not going to be highly competitive the next 2 to 3 years.
Agree there.
I
Yep.
think worst, even if he's just this player this season, 25 and 25, let's call it, in 4 years, that's probably going to be worth like 6. I just don't see any downside on this unless he just completely plateaus at 22 years old. And the roster doesn't get any better.
I'm not going to preemptively call the kid a bust. I just think it's a confusing.
How?
It's investing a whole lot of money on very, very little track record. I mean, if we were having this conversation about Cole Caulfield after 1 year, you'd be running in with the memes about the best 50-goal scorer to
Cole
never
Caulfield
score
is a
30
Hobie
goals.
Baker winner.
Now you're talking about Matthew Coronato, who scored 47 points, is the best 70-point young forward in the league. What are we doing here?
I said he's probably going to be 30 and 30. Decent chance at being 35 and 35. When looking at him, again, it's not like he was half a point per game in the AHL last year and then just exploded out of nowhere. This guy's track record has been damn good at every single level for the most part. So it's not a complete, and where I was actually going to turn this into a Wolf extension, who also has been dominated at every single level, and then this season finally got the NHL experience and dominated. But yeah, I think we usually see a trend that these deals tend to work out. There are exceptions where it doesn't. Like Owen Power is not looking fantastic at 8.25 or whatever it is. There's I don't know why I used him. There's probably way worse examples. Buffalo Sabres fans are about to come after me. But yeah, at $6.5 million, man, that's nothing. That's nothing in the modern NHL. And again, it's for a guy this is going to be between his age 23 and 29-year-old seasons. Like, I just don't, like, I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's a Jack Hughes 2.0. He's ready to take this massive jump where he's going to be the franchise forward. Oh shit. The franchise forward for the Calgary Flames. But I could see him be the 3rd best player on a playoff team. Maybe not true contender. 4th if they turn into a contender, but that it's 6.5 for mostly his prime is very good value. I'm crazy. I think it's crazy you're taking like the contrarian stance.
No,
this
okay,
hard.
so who is the worst team in the playoffs this year? It's Montreal, right? Who's their 3rd best player? Slavkovsky, we're saying. You think Coronato's better than Slavkovsky right now?
I'd probably go Slavkovsky. Yeah, but again, like, Coronato's going to get better. Coronato at 26 years old is going to be better than Slavkovsky is right now. But Slavkovsky's obviously going to get better as well. Montreal fans, don't kill me.
I'm just stuck on it. I don't think you can find any like real
New Jersey
world
Devils'
example.
3rd best forward right now is Timo Meier. You hate Timo Myers. Coronado might be better than Timo Meier.
You got me there.
Okay, but
the Wolf extension is tough because it's another thing. I'm consistent on this. The longtime viewers know I'm consistent. I don't believe in long-term extensions for guys with low track records, but so when it's goalies.
I disagree with Wolf, dude. Again, he was the back-to-back WHL goalie of the year, back-to-back AHL MVP as a goalie. He was a little bit shaky his first 19 games or whatever last year, but that Calgary team was pretty shit in front of him. And this year, was an absolute workhorse.
He was
towards the
outstanding
end.
this year. He was incredible this year.
I'm not saying
amazing
give him the
season.
Shesterkin, but if they sign him to anything 8 years under $8 million, I'm gonna love that contract.
I won't. You cannot give a guy 8 years for 50 games of great hockey. They were great.
But again,
they were games of great hockey. They were great games.
Single level. It's not. You
cannot give a guy an 8x7 for WHL production.
AHL
for an AHL MVP.
AHL
You just can't do it. You just can't do it.
But that it's going to happen. They're going to bridge him like a Shesterkin or something like that, and then in 3 years, you're going to have to give him the $11-12 million. I think
good. Let him play and prove that he's going to be worth 11 or 12.
You don't have the stones to take chances, and it's sad. It's really sad. I say you bet on the young guys, especially in Calgary. This early on, you have such a margin for error, ERA, a margin for error, like. And I still don't even think that there's that much, like, on the Wolf one, yes, maybe that could end up disastrous. But for the Coronato one, I really can't see this one aging bad. You would not even give Wolf a 8x6.5.
No, I would.
That's crazy.
I would be. I would be terrified to do literally anything over like 4 years. I mean, it's.
So would you give him a 4x6?
Yes, easily in a heartbeat. I'd give him like 4x7.5 right now. The money's not so much the concern to me. The concern is the term. Do you have any idea how many goalies with these tiny sample sizes end up being literally unplayable AHL guys?
So I don't mean to be hyperbolic with this. At a lottery goalie, he might have like the best pre-NHL resume that we have ever seen. And granted, it's over like 5 years. Like he took a while to get to the NHL, and Calgary didn't rush him, which is why he's probably so good right now compared to some other guys. But he's just been the best goalie in like every single league that he played in. And in his first season in the NHL at 23, actually I think he's 24 now, he was a top 10 goalie, Calder finalist. But we're going to move on. We got so much else to talk about. Another extension that we just wanted to go and talk about before we do our first round recaps. Taylor Hall, 3 years, $3.166 million. 18 points in 31 regular season games, 3 points in 5 playoff games right now. He came over in the Rantanen deal. I feel like people forget that he was also in that. It wasn't just Natchez and Drury, 3-team deal with that. I don't think that he's the perfect Rod Brindamore player in terms of two-way strength, but he's a speedy middle six guy. Carolina needs some offense. You can't have, although you'd love to have all Seth Jarvises, you're not going to find all Seth Jarvises. You need to find offense somehow. If he gives you 47 points next year, then like 42 points, then either you trade him in his last year or he gives you like 36, and he's just like in like the 35th percentile defensively, not like just below average. I think this is a good deal. I think that's probably the most likely outcome. We're not going to get into a debate, I hope, over Taylor Hall.
No, I'm extremely neutral on Taylor Hall. This contract is fine. It's whatever. He doesn't seem like a fit on paper for the Brindamore system, but on the ice, it seems like the fit's been going pretty well, actually. I guess the one point of caution is, he is a guy whose best asset is his speed, which means he's inherently a lot more likely to age worse than any other kind of player, because those legs can just fall apart one day and then he has nothing. But it's a totally fine contract.
It's easy to get out of 3.16. Like if in the first year it's a disaster, they could probably attach a 3rd-round pick to some rebuilding team, attach a 3rd-round pick to him and dump him.
Easily. You found one I'm not able to hot take on. Congratulations.
Let's get ready for these first-round recaps, though.
I'm so ready to dive in for this.
Okay, so with the first-round recaps, as much as I want to talk about the draft lottery the entire episode, I don't think we have to spend too much time on Carolina versus New Jersey.
We need to spend a tiny bit of time because of one thing.
Okay, I guess.
Which I'm going to hold you accountable on this. I'm not sure how many of the other fans were. You said in your first round preview briefly that Jake Allen, the Devils might be better off starting Jake Allen than Jacob Markstrom. Jacob Markstrom was the Devils' best player in that series throughout I consistently.
I agree, but like in the moment, like objectively during the regular season, Jake Allen was better.
You had a bad take. You got to trust your number one guy.
Again, I have bad takes. Don't get me wrong, but like. The logic was there. It wasn't like I said something like absolutely ridiculous. Like Markstrom played great, and I think that really inspires New Jersey Devils fans for next season when they are hopefully healthy, although Jack Hughes can never stay healthy. But yeah, Jake Allen was very good. You got me. But I don't think on the list of bad takes, especially within the first round of the playoffs,
it's not the highest one, but it is one you're going to speed past if I didn't say anything. Yeah. My Timo Meyer hate, meanwhile, aged phenomenally. He had a pretty awful series. It was hideous.
Yeah. It was a game 2. He had it was a bouncing puck, but easily could have tied it up, or maybe even was it to take the lead? I forget. But
it's a tying goal with an open net there, and he could not put the puck on net.
Yeah, all right, we're gonna move on to Montreal versus Washington. Yeah, Washington had far more depth. The Montreal first line actually played pretty damn good. They had a 66.3% expected goals percentage. Lane Hudson was by far their best defenseman, but when those guys weren't on the ice, it wasn't that pretty. Logan Thompson, we weren't sure that he was even going to play at all, and that he got hurt mid-series, and he put up like a 923. Yeah, you definitely got to be feeling good if you're a Capitals fan right now.
I'm feeling okay, I think, for the Capitals, right? So it's the good is Logan Thompson playing well when healthy. How healthy exactly will he be? That seems like a really scary question these days. But I do feel encouraged that he showed none of that second half rust at all in this series. The bad is that Montreal went 5 for 15 on the power play,
yes.
which Montreal's power play is scary. You know, they have elite of a top group, as you said. They're very top heavy right now. Carolina doesn't have any Lane Hudson type guy to run the power play, so it might not be a super pressing issue, but the Capitals' penalty kill was genuinely not good. And if you're looking at this team as a serious cup contender, I do think that is the one thing that you do need to fix. Also good, even without scoring up on the stat sheet at all. I thought Ryan Leonard played really well. All over the ice.
His puck possession is very
spark
impressive
plug player. He's active on the boards. He's quick. He feels kind of like an NBA bench player running in just to make things happen. It doesn't directly cause points, but like a Jason Terry, Jamal Crawford type role there.
I'd say like a Tony Allen. Well, actually, he provides some offense, but like, yeah, he really impressed me, especially without Protas. Like, they didn't really skip a beat once he fully gets gets going within the next series. It's going to be scary, and I think that we'll talk about Carolina versus Washington, but that's going to be an absolute war. Winnipeg versus St. Louis.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Montreal still.
Okay, go off.
Lane Hudson was a -5 in the series with 2 even strength points. I'm not going to galaxy brain myself into calling Lane Hudson a bad hockey player, but he does have obvious flaws. He has flaws in his game. Those flaws are super apparent. It seemed like he was doing a really good job working on them throughout the season, getting, smarter, positioning himself better defensively, and to a big extent that fell apart in this series. Montreal needs him to take that next step of being a solid two-way player and not an all-offense guy.
Yeah, he had good underlying numbers, but it was mainly just because he was generating a ton of offense, as well as maybe a little bit lackluster defensively. They need to get some kind of right-handed lockdown defensive defenseman to pair with him. That's not really out there this summer via free agency, but it became apparent that Mike Matheson
is not
it at all in terms of a number 2. And he actually played more, I think, in this series than Lane Hudson. They might have to, if they can re-sign Matheson on like a 3-year deal at $4.55 million this summer. He does have another year left on his deal. Maybe you do that, but if he wants to get paid, I'd consider shipping him out and just signing a replacement on a cheap 2 to 3 year deal from Montreal.
Matheson at this point in his career is just straight up not a good player. I mean, he was doing some point compiling, being the only defenseman on Montreal, logging minutes without actually being a good player. Now that they do have a serious number 1 defenseman, those flaws are really showing.
Yeah. When he's not on that top power play, the production falls off a decent amount. All right, now we're going to move on to Winnipeg versus St. Louis. Maybe the best final 2 minutes ever. It started off maybe the worst 7 minutes ever for the Winnipeg Jets when Connor Hellebuck let in one definitive softie, one kind of breakdown. But overall in the series, St. Louis just blitzed the front of the net. Hellebuck, although he's still the best goalie in the NHL, he should have made big saves. He wasn't making big saves, but he really showed up in the final, 53 of regulation in the 2 overtimes. Without Scheifele, without Morrissey, they were just a far better team, basically, from the second period on. They finally flipped that switch truly, although they did outplay them to a degree in Game 1, Game 2, Game 5. You saw that desperation really kick in and then be able to dominate, especially at 5-on-5 throughout the series. They were able to get get physical and get the St. Louis Blues out of the net. And Connor Hellebuck, as long as he can see the puck all the way through, still is a pretty decent goalie.
This was such the obvious narrative. It was such a rough series for Hellebuck, and he recovered well at the end. But he needs to be better, straight up.
Definitely.
If this team wants to go anywhere, he needs to be much, much better. The home road splits, especially, were jarring. The way he just did not perform on the road at all. I mean, it's true. Hellebuck is the best goalie in the league who's active right now, career-wise. He's a Hall of Famer for sure. He's the best goalie of his era. But, we're running the very real risk of his legacy
Never get to a cup
overall
final.
might be just how poor he looks in playoffs. I mean, it's not like this is the first year ever that he's had a poor playoff run.
Last
and
year, the year
he's
before
going to be
that.
tested much, much tougher against Dallas than he was against St. Louis.
Yeah.
As far as actual notes on Winnipeg goes, they look like they're going to be destroyed by injuries being the story throughout. They were a fundamentally different team with Ehlers and Velarde back in the last couple games, and then immediately that's more than compensated by guys lost. I don't know if Josh Morrissey is expected to come back in the near future here, but he is truly irreplaceable.
Pionk did step up, but he can't do that for 7 games against the Dallas Stars.
It's nice that he did it once, but I'm not going to sit here and seriously tell your audience that Neil Pionk is capable of stepping up as a number one defenseman in a playoff series. I just don't believe that's true. Dallas doesn't have Heiskanen. They have a solid replacement in Thomas Harley. Winnipeg doesn't have Morrissey. Huge drop-off in the replacement there.
Yeah.
I also do question if Ehlers and Velarde are actually healthy or if they were kind of rushed back.
Ehlers was looking rough until that final play.
Yeah,
for the most
Ehlers
part.
in particular really did not impress me in the minutes he was in there. Just having him on the ice and getting the lines back to normal did seem to energize the Jets and put some spark back in the team. But specifically, did Ehlers look like he was actually recovered? I'm not convinced. To me, it kind of looked like, oh, we need to win the game. So, tell the trainers to put him out there at 85% or whatever he is. Cause I do not think it's 100.
Yeah. And especially if Scheifele's out, they already had such a deficiency at the second line center position. Basically, we're rolling out 2 third line centers in Nemestikov. And I love Adam Lowry. He's one of the best third line centers in the NHL. And I actually thought Nemestikov looked pretty good towards the end of the series, getting some good chances. But Kyle Connor's not going to be able to carry the way that he did against the St. Louis Blues against Dallas Stars. We got to highlight him. He had 4 goals, 8 assists. I think in the 4 wins, he had 9 or 10 of his points. He was unreal.
Question here. Do you see St. Louis being in the playoffs next year?
No, I have Utah.
Fair enough. I mean, let's give
Depends
credit.
on what Utah does. Right now, I'd go St. Louis, but Utah has $30 million of cap space and no notable free agents.
Yeah, let's give credit that Cam Fowler was the best player in the series somehow.
No, best defense. I think Kyle Connor was better. Cam Fowler had 1 5-point game, which was awesome. And then he still had another 5 points on top of that, but I'm taking Kyle Connor.
And it's the one thing for St. Louis that I still struggle with. I said it at the start of the series. I'll say it again now that they lost, is how inconsistent and not checked in Jordan Kyrou seems for long stretches. There was a game this series where the Blues scored 5, he didn't get a point. Where the Blues scored 7 and he didn't get a point.
Torpchenko was impressing me more often at times than Jordan Kyrou in this series. Snuggerud was really impressive, though. I think he's going to have a decent rookie year next year playing within that middle 6.
Agree on that.
Also, we talk about Hellebuck going from this St. Louis to Dallas. They didn't even have Dylan Holloway, arguably their second best forward this season ahead of Jordan Kyrou. So that's going to be definitely a rude awakening. Cole Perfetti, shout out to him, to one of the best redirects that I've ever seen in my entire life on that first goal. And then to tie it up with nothing remaining. And yeah, Adam Lowry definitely came in clutch. St. Louis should be in the mix next year. It depends. Dvorsky, Broberg needs to be first half Broberg compared to second half Broberg. His splits really fell off a decent amount. But yeah, pretty electric series. I had it going 7. That's one series I predicted dead on. Winnipeg in 7. Let's fucking go. One of the few, or one of the only maybe. Dallas versus Colorado. Another electric game 7. This game 7, people are saying it's the greatest game ever. It might be the greatest third period ever. It's kind of a snooze fest up until then.
It was. We were texting
that,
each other about how boring the game was in the first 2 periods. Just no movement. Everyone playing boring, try not to lose hockey. And then in the third period, Mikko Rantanen with, when you factor in the context and the narrative, I do probably agree the greatest game 7 performance ever.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And it was just so perfect, even though I had Colorado in my bracket, just to see Ryan Lindgren kind of directly to a degree being to blame for both of the goals. The first one was a miscommunication, was a pick. You maybe could have argued interference, but Lindgren should have made a better effort, should have gotten around the pick. Mikko Rantanen walks right down Broadway and just rips it. And then on the second one, entering the zone, I believe on a power play, Lindgren just lets him easily go by. Rantanen could have scored immediately, not even wrapped it around, and had a good look. People saying he pushed him to the outside. He had a wide open opportunity regardless. And then Sam Girard just stood in front of the net with his skate angled for an easy bank shot. But it's just really, really awesome for Dallas to be able to acquire Mikko Rantanen and then have this kind of performance. And the fact that they're able to beat Colorado again without their 2 best players, it's euphoric for the Dallas Stars. And they're the favorite in the West going forward. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, I saw a couple comments after Dallas losses. People love to overreact after losses, criticizing Pete DeBoer as a coach. Give Pete DeBoer his flowers. He is now 9-0 in Game 7s. Insane. He is now 4-0 in playoff series versus the Bednar Avs. 4-0 with 3 different teams. One of those was with the Sharks. One of those was with Vegas. 2 with Dallas. Let's talk actually about Bednar, because I don't like to overreact after losing playoff series, but I am kind of open to the thought that maybe the Avs should move on from Bednar sooner than later. And I'll tell you why, because my big issue is just his inflexibility. This series, we saw Pete DeBoer make adjustments when things weren't working. We saw Jared Bednar say, these are my guys. We have our style of playing hockey. I assume if we keep going at it with our style enough times, we'll win enough coin flips and win the series, and things will work out that way. And just kind of try to brute force the track meet vertical play in, even though Dallas was making some real adjustments to stop it. I don't know exactly who could do a better job coaching this team. Frankly, I think they've lost more depth than they're able to compensate for at this point. But maybe a new coach is called for. Not this summer, but really start thinking about it next year.
Yeah, I think next year is you got to get to at least the Western Conference Finals. When looking at it, there was an excuse in 2023. Didn't have Landeskog. Nichushkin left after Game 3 of that series. 2024, they didn't do a ton at the deadline besides the Byram swap, which was kind of just net equal, and Middlestat wasn't a true second-line center. Nichushkin leaves that second-round series as well. They get out of the first round. But this next year is really the make or break, because 2022, he is a Stanley Cup winning head coach, but that team was beyond loaded. That, in my opinion, might be the best team with a salary cap era. The amount of depth that they had was just absolutely perfection. Guys on insanely cheap deals. Nathan McKinnon was still making $6.25 million to be the second best player in the NHL. But even before that, he never got to a Western Conference Finals, I believe, from 2019 to 2021, right? He just got to the second round every single year, so he disappointed there. So his only real claim to fame is with one of the best teams in the NHL. And I understand he's had very good regular seasons as well. They've been decimated by injuries prior, and he's got in them last year. Did they? No, they didn't win the division. They finished third, actually, in the division. Yeah, but still, it was impressive what he did in terms of getting them safely in a playoff spot. This year, rough start as well with injuries. So I still think he's a good coach, but similarly to some other spots, similarly to, I wouldn't have hated, he's returning, but if John Cooper left just to get a new voice in there, it might be time for Colorado. And we also just got to talk about the fact that Cale Makar wasn't that good in this series.
It wasn't. I mean, and that's a fair point too, right? I sympathize with, as a coach, you don't game plan adjustments for what if Cale Makar kind of sucks. That is
Thomas
the one
Harley
case.
Outplays Cale Makar, yeah.
That is the one case where actually just brute forcing your style makes sense, because I spent the whole series thinking, surely eventually Cale Makar will show up and play better and be Cale Makar. And we're just kind of waiting for that to happen. And it just never did.
Yeah, he was very underwhelming, whether that's, again, 2018 World Juniors, Team Canada. I believe he's testifying. He hasn't yet, right?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so that's obviously on his mind. Not trying to implicate anything, but regardless, that's stressful. Yeah, Brock Nelson had 4 assists, 0 goals in 7 games. I think it is more so on McFarland, just because I hated his week leading up to the deadline. I've mentioned this 9,000 times. If you watch me, you probably saw that or heard this so many times. But Nelson, Lindgren, Coyle for a shit ton of picks and prospects. Even in the moment, I was like, Nelson's an upgrade, but not for that price. Lindgren can be an okay third pair guy, I guess, but not for a second and a fourth round pick. Coyle for Middlestat in a second, and Will Zeller's the best player in the USHL in his draft year +1. Like, McFarland has put this team in a really bad spot. No first, second, third round picks for the next 2 years, where if they were to change anything, I'd probably say McFarland. The only problem is McFarland is basically an extension of Joe Sakic, if that makes sense. Like, he was the assistant general manager. Are you getting rid of Sakic at that point? No, you're not.
It's complicated, though, because it does feel like, years ago when Sakic was more hands-on in the GM role, they were making better moves.
Yeah, Lehkonen, Manson turned out great.
I don't think it's very hard to figure out who exactly is responsible for what, but I think for the most part, the years where McFarland is the legally labeled GM have not been good.
Yeah, definitely not. And it's been unfortunate circumstances with Landeskog and Petrushkin, but even then, unacceptable. To lose to Seattle was egregious, in my opinion. You ready to move on to another series?
Let's do it.
Toronto versus Ottawa. I think if you're an Ottawa fan, you're slightly disappointed just because you lost those game 2 and game 3 in overtime, and Omar kind of played underwhelming in that series. The big difference was the power play, 35.3% for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ottawa had a lackluster power play during the penalty kill during the regular season. Toronto's was the second best from November on, and they just took advantage of it. In terms of Ottawa guys that disappointed me, Batherson, much like Cale Makar, has a certain trial. He already testified or was already been involved in it.
He turns footage over to police. He has not testified in court yet. It's not clear if he will. I would imagine he will in the future, but we don't know.
But yeah, he had a rough series, in my opinion, especially on that Domi game winner. As well as Dylan Cousins. I still like the Josh Norris trade. They picked up a second-round pick, and Norris might be injured for 30, 40 games a season, but that kind of showed why there is some serious concerns about that contract going forward. I thought Shabbat and Jensen were a little bit underwhelming. Sanderson and Zub really risen to the occasion in this series. So much like Montreal, their core pieces did play very good outside of Olmark, but there's still a lot of work to be done and potential tweaking to get this team over the hump. But give Toronto the flowers. I'm not acting like Ottawa got upset or anything. Toronto's big guys stepped up. Their big 3 were all over a point per game. John Tavares had 3 goals and 2 assists. And Anthony Stolarz in the first 3 games was fantastic. Did kind of fall off a decent amount. We're going to talk about Stolarz in the Florida versus Toronto preview. Unfortunate what happened to him via Sam Bennett. But the defense core stepped up in a big way. They got leads. They held it down, clogged the middle, blocked a metric shit ton of shots. It was a great defensive effort by Toronto, and for Ottawa, outside of the first line and first pair, I was pretty underwhelmed.
Yeah, so my one bad take that I should be held accounted for from our first round preview was being very critical of Toronto's defense and just fully not believing in the Oliver Ekman-Larsson of it all to be defending high-caliber playoff minutes. Toronto's defense looked very strong. Their best players were their best players, which, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's really a thing for Toronto. It's been the thing for the last 6 or 7 years. It will be the thing for as long as this era continues. If Matthews and Marner and Nylander are the best players on the ice, Toronto will win more games than they lose. They've shown that through like 600 games worth of regular season hockey. If they're not the best players on the ice, they're in a lot of trouble, which has mostly been true in the playoffs. In this series, they were the best players on the ice.
Yeah, and just Chris Tanev's so fucking good.
So good.
So
he
good.
Is.
He's, even though he's wearing that Toronto Maple Leafs uniform, when he makes an amazing defensive play, I'm just like, that's art. If Jacob Slavin didn't exist, he'd be getting a lot more recognition. Anything else you got on this series? Any concerns about Olmark going forward?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think Ottawa's defensive structure is very good. You know, there's a big gap between we have a good top defensive pair and we have a good defense. Ottawa's in this tough spot where a lot of their top forwards are physical guys, but not really like good at keeping the puck out of the net guys. Like Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson are good forecheckers. They'll put up hits. I'm not sure if they're like useful players for a defensive structure in the way that like a Mitch Marner is.
Yeah, positioning and an effective stick. But yeah, Ottawa, the middle of the ice was wide open for Toronto to just come bashing down. So many breakaways off defensive breakdowns. They definitely have a lot of work to do, but much like Montreal, it sucks that they lost to their rival, but success.
No, you feel encouraged by this.
Team that's not feeling encouraged, though, is the Tampa Bay Lightning after the Florida Panthers absolutely pumped them. Yeah, back-to-back years of Kucherov being shit against Florida, back-to-back years of Vasilevsky being underwhelming. Just the way that Florida back-checks is so impressive in terms of shutting down the neutral zone. Like the Kucherov line, the Hagel line. Hagel obviously missed a lot, but like they were not able to get anything entering the zone because Florida is just so effective in the neutral zone. It's awesome with their physicality, with their two-way game. Brad Marchand looks fantastic, way better than I was expecting. He had a certain pop. That third line of Hidden, Lundell, and Luostarinen were probably, although they got easier matchups, were the best line without a doubt in this series. It was awesome, and I fell for it again. I fell for doubting the Florida Panthers, and I feel like a dummy.
How are the Conn Smythe odds on Brandon Hagel looking
you
right
picked
now?
Tampa Bay to win the cup too. Okay, I don't want to hear it. Don't act like you picked Florida.
No, Florida. The most surprising coaching decision that Florida made in this series was to not play Marchand with Tkachuk and Bennett, and instead drop him down to that Lundell.
What all
line.
the aggregate accounts want? Oh, the rat line. Like, no, build the best fucking lines for your team.
Yeah, that was clearly a great decision. That whole line, as you said, looked phenomenal. I think for Tampa Bay, it's as simple as Vasilevsky got significantly outplayed by Bobrovsky. I don't think as far as like momentum on the ice, Florida massively dominated this series in any way. But Bobrovsky made all of the saves he was supposed to and a couple of saves that were robbing really good attempts. Vasilevsky made missed several of the saves he was supposed to and could not come up strong and steal a game at any point.
Yeah.
He needs to be better. If I don't envision Tampa doing anything to shake up this core. I think you don't really have a choice but to run it back. But, you know, if you want that to be successful, Vasilevsky has to be better.
Yeah, no doubt. 872 is not going to get it done. I floated it on my, like, what these teams have to do in the offseason. The only guy that they could realistically move, Kucherov, doesn't have full trade protection. Not saying they should, but everybody else basically is either on not that good of a contract, or most of them are on good contracts, or have like a no trade, no movement clause. You're not trading Vasilevsky because goaltenders, you don't get a haul, and who are you going to throw in there? That's the only potential move, but they're not going from trading Stamkos to then getting rid of Kucherov, although they would get a metric shit ton for Kuch. He makes 9.5 the next 2 years. Like, I could maybe see if he was making 13.5 and you think that we can spread that money out better, but he's one of the most cost-efficient players in the NHL. And he has been a big playoff performer prior.
It's just what the reality of it is, though. Those Tampa teams that won the Cup had a lot of depth. They ran into salary cap issues. They lost depth a lot faster than they got it back. And this is what it is. The biggest lie that sports fans tell themselves, and they all do tell themselves this, is, oh, if we win a championship, we can suck for a decade and I wouldn't care. Tampa won 2 championships, came very close to a third. It's been like 3 years of good but not great hockey. And there are already people like asking for heads on the guys who are the core parts of those championship teams.
I think that they're mostly satisfied, but I agree. Back-to-back years of losing to Florida. Like, if they made the second round, lost in Eastern Conference Finals, but to lose the back-to-back years, especially after doing so much. And in fairness, there is some cope with Bjorkstrand, Hagel. Bjorkstrand didn't play at all. Hagel played like 2.5 games. But, yeah, Florida fully owns this series going forward, without a doubt. And they're not much younger, but they should be the better team the next 2 to 3 years probably as well. Vegas, Minnesota. When looking at this series, my takeaways are Minnesota, their first line was absolutely cooking the first 3 games. Vegas, Bruce Cassidy found a way to adjust, and Eichel and Stone finally broke up. The last 3 games, Eichel and Stone had 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points combined. They showed up. Brett Howden and some of their depth guys showed up in big ways. So yeah, it was a good coaching job by Cassidy. Meanwhile, Hines really had no answer at 5-on-5 outside of that top line. And so once that top line kind of went cold, and I think that the Faber-Middleton pair got exposed a little bit. Brodin and Spurgeon were still solid. Zeev Boyum only played like 13, 14 minutes a night, but clearly defensively he wasn't ready for the playoffs.
I'm not holding it against him.
No.
Zeev Boyum was thrown into the fire and probably shouldn't have been, but he clearly is not ready for this kind of a stage.
Yeah, he's going to need a full season to adjust. Yeah, it's underwhelming for Minnesota because they were up 2-1 in the series, up 2-1 in Game 4 at home, and blew it. And even in that Game 6, fucking Gustav Nyquist, the guy they trade a second-round pick at the deadline, goes off sides for absolutely no reason.
Goose Egg Nyquist, 0 points in the series. Worst deadline acquisition of the season.
Yeah, and they're probably going to re-sign him knowing them. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, even with, of course, there's Minnesota, $12 million of dead money. Like, it wasn't their year, but still, you thought that you would have had I thought that for sure that they were going to have a good shot at this series. To blow it, especially when Aiden Hill really wasn't that good throughout the series, it's underwhelming. But for Vegas, again, I'm not trying to shit on Vegas. Like, the fact that they were able to overcome 3 games of Eichel being underwhelming, 3 games of Stone, Hill's only going to be better most likely. Very encouraging for them.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the cracks in it the whole time, right? This was a fundamentally different series, games 1-3 versus games 4-6. But even in games 1-3, it was very clear Minnesota is getting far outclassed when the top line is off the ice. If Vegas can find a way to stop the top line, Minnesota has absolutely nothing where they're going to get goals from. Vegas did find a way to stop it. They found a way, too, to improve their penalty kill, their power kill. They got a shorthanded goal in what ended up being a 1-goal game. That's huge. But Vegas made those adjustments. The top line slowed down games 4-6. The power play, just 1 of 7 games 4-6. Minnesota could not generate offense from Kaprizov or Boldy. After adjustments, they can't generate offense from anywhere else because they're not a very good or very deep team. All of that to compensate for the fact that, frankly, other than Shea Theodore and Brett Howden, most of the Vegas Knights did not actually have a great series. They were generally good. Vegas is good at holding possession. They're good at limiting bad turnovers. But, as you said, Eichel and Stone were ghosts for half the series. Aiden Hill was below average. That he I don't even know if I want to say he needs to be better because he will still be better than the goalies he's got to play against in round 2. But it would be nice for Vegas if he starts playing better. It would help.
$6.25 million goaltender. Yeah, another thing regarding the Minnesota lack of depth, Marco Rossi lost some money these playoffs. He might have went from a 7 by 7.5 or something like that. So now Minnesota says maybe we bridge you 3 to 4 years at $6.5 million, considering the fact that he really wasn't able to generate shit on his own. And in fairness, lackluster wingers. Don't get me wrong. He was playing with Gustav Nyquist and Zuccarello is still pretty good, but it just was underwhelming from him. And if you're Minnesota going forward, you got to bring in some kind of forward depth. You got to swing on not Brock Nelson because Brock Nelson looks so bad and doesn't fit their core at all. But whether it's Ehlers, whether it's Brock Besser, make something happen. Even if it is a slight overpay, you're going to have a lot of money this offseason, and most of your guys are locked up, pretty team friendly. You got to account for the Kaprizov extension next summer after. But they need to be aggressive.
Agree there. It's this summer, the one thing that you have on the open market is legit top 6 wings. That's clearly a need for Minnesota. They have exactly 2 of those. Most good playoff teams, you want 4. That's how many wings go in a top 6. So hopefully they can figure that out.
Yeah, they should not be having to rely on their own McDry in terms of the big 3 playing on the first line and then sacrificing offense throughout the entire lineup. And speaking of McDry, that was a good segue there. They had a pretty good performance against the Los Angeles Kings. Yeah, everything's been said about the LA Kings. First 2 games, win it, almost blow game 1. And then in game 3, just an absolute disaster. I will say the challenge by Hiller, although I wouldn't have done it myself, I do think it's a little bit overhated just because they still should have killed the penalty off. It's not like they gave Edmonton a goal by losing that challenge. They still had the 8th best penalty kill in the regular season, but it was at 61.5% in this series. So although Hiller did a shit coaching job, it's also on the players a decent amount as well. The fact they were able to not stop this power play. Shout out Evan Bouchard. I trashed on him, joked on him. I still think he's a good player than what most people think, but to score those 2 goals and basically save their season from going down 3-1, so impressive. And once they won that game, they utterly dominated game 5. Game 6 just had more top-end talent and got it done. When you got Connor Brown scoring 5 points in a series too as well, you're probably winning that series. And LA, for a team that has been so defensively focused and so solid this year throughout the season, just completely came undone off rip, basically from the 3rd period of game 1 on.
Agreed, exactly. Hideous coaching job from Hiller. He should be unemployed yesterday.
I agree with that. But more so because of just how bad they were in the 3rd period, not the challenge.
No, the challenge gets the attention. I want to focus on the defensive deployment, though, really, because LA's defense was so good in the regular season, and it was awful in this series, and that's what cost them. This series ended up being a very track meet, all offense type series, going both ways. Adrian Kempe was very good, kept them in that regard. So if this series is going to be all offense, all speed, all energy, why is Drew Doughty playing 27 minutes a night while Jordan Spence under 10 minutes a night getting healthy scratched, Brand Clark under 13 minutes a night?
They're fumbling the development of those two.
There was no version of this series where 35-year-old Drew Doughty was going to grit himself into slowing down McDavid and Draisaitl. It was clear from the way the series was going, the answer was to try and be more offensive in your approach. LA has the blue liners to do that, and they just chose not to do it. The Doughty-Mikey Anderson pair had an XG rate of 36%. Drew Doughty was very not good in this series and logged by far the most minutes in it, despite being clearly not good. At no point did Hiller stop and think maybe having the oldest guy on the team play the most minutes is directly harmful and it's making him play worse in those minutes.
Yeah.
It's not like LA doesn't have youth. It's not like they don't have offensive talent. He just resisted using it. Anyway, I feel like the LA half of the analysis is much more interesting than the Edmonton half, because the Edmonton half really is just McDavid was good, Draisaitl was good, Beauchard offensively was good. Do I think the Oilers showed anything to make me think they can slow down Vegas without Ekholm? No, I didn't see that. Did I see anything to make me think that Hyman or RNH or Evander Kane could generate offense on their own without McDavid or Draisaitl? No, I didn't see that. Did I see anything from the goaltending to give me any confidence at all? Absolutely not. I see you social media Oilers fans acting like Calvin Pickard with an under 900 save percentage is going to be the savior. No, he's not. He was relatively better than Stuart Skinner, but he's straight up not a good goalie. That's all there is to that.
Yeah. As you mentioned, Drew Doughty wasn't even good when he returned after missing 4 months from a broken ankle, so it's no surprise that he's not able to keep up with those guys. In terms of the LA Kings, Rob Blake out. I think we agree. That's the right call. He had some good. He had some bad. It wasn't all bad, but just never was able to get this team over the hump. He swung his one big, he traded for Fiala as well, and that was pretty solid, but gave up Faber in the process. But his other big swing, PLD, completely backfired. He did move off him for Darcy Kemper, but Darcy Kemper's 35 years old compared to what you thought you were getting, which was a potential number 1 center to replace Anze Kopitar. So, yeah, the LA Kings, not in some kind of horrible situation. They're going to be a good team for a while, but it's going to be tough for right now, this next general manager, to get them over the hump. Unless Doughty, and more so Kopitar, because he's the actual one that can get traded. Doughty has 3 years left or 2 years left at $11 million. But they could do some kind of 1 to 2 year retool, not a full rebuild, and start to build around Byfield and Clark. But I feel like ownership probably wants to just continue to make the playoffs with their 2 legends and say, oh, we got close. We were up 2-0 in that series. We were up in game 4 to potentially go up 3-1, where I think that this team's just going to stay in that 4-7 range in the Western Conference.
You're probably right about the direction. I don't think that works with LA Kings fans just because it's been the same opponent every single year. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you lose in the first round 4 times in a row to 4 different teams, you can sell the fan base on, oh, we were in it, we were close. Losing to the Oilers 4 years in a row makes your fan base totally check out when you play the Oilers.
Yeah. Again, I don't like divisional seeding, but it's win your division too. That's the other thing. It's not like completely out of their control. I hate when it's like we're only out because of divisional seeding. Like, no, you could have played the Minnesota Wild, who are an extremely shallow team, but still a good team. Last year, you could have won. Although Vancouver won it by a decent amount, you could have won the division. You could have played the Nashville Predators that were complete pretenders. Like, some of it is within their control, and to potentially go win a Stanley Cup, you got to go play teams like the Edmonton Oilers. Even if they did make it out of the first round, like, they probably would have lost to the Vegas Golden Knights like in prior years or something like that. So yeah, this team just does not have the high end superstar talent right now, and their play style, more so defensive, slow it down, is just not going to work come later on in the playoffs. So they need a complete identity change. Hopefully that would stem from a new general manager and from a new head coach. But it looks like Hiller's probably going to be back at this point, I think.
I think if he was going to be fired, they would have done it with the Rob Blake announcement.
It might be a new GM pick. That's what they're doing with Patrick Waugh to a degree. I think that they might have actually released a statement saying Hiller is back, but we'll see in the coming days. Okay, so we are now going to move on to our second round preview, and I think it's fair that we start with one of the series that already is underway. The Toronto Maple Leafs are up 1-0 on the Florida Panthers. We'll give our prediction 3, 2, 1. Panthers in 7. Okay, we're in agreement
boring,
here.
yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch the first 2 periods of this game. I was soaking in the Islanders draft lottery win. Third period was more so dominated by the Panthers, but because they were up 4-1, they were desperate and they did look good. And even Toronto, I think, still did a pretty solid job defensively. There was one really weird goal off Brandon. I'm thinking about Hagel still. Brandon Carlo's stick. But when looking at this series, I still think Florida can win this. Obviously, they were on the road. Losing game 1's not the end of the world. Not saying this is horrible to say, but like, Stolar is out, even if it is a Bennett 2-game suspension, and he should get suspended, is probably a net positive for the Florida Panthers. Would you agree on that? I know it's fucked up to say.
I don't know.
Wool
regular
is a good
season,
goalie.
Wool was really just as good as Stolar's.
Not quite as good, but Wool has been very good in the playoffs in years past. But from that angle, and yeah, I still like Florida's forward depth for sure more than the Toronto Maple Leafs. Defense core, I'd probably give it to Toronto, but again, I doubted the Florida Panthers defense core in the first round. So yeah, give me the Florida Panthers, even with the Toronto Maple Leafs up 1.
Yeah, I think the Panthers have more talent, more depth, more physicality, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Sam Bennett should be suspended for that play. I don't think it was this evil, malicious intent thing. I mean,
He tends to make it look like an accident. Like in the
Sam
moment.
Bennett was teammates with the guy in juniors. He's been teammates
Fair,
with the guy for
fair.
a year in the NHL.
That is true.
I don't think he intentionally set out to land him in the hospital. But, Florida does have several players known for dirty hits. That was one of them.
Sam
That's one of
Bennett's
the
the
players,
captain.
and that was one of the hits that he's known for. I do think Florida just has straight up more talent. I'm open to being wrong, but if I'm going to be
we're
wrong,
already
it's going to
down
have
1-0.
to be Matthews and Marner and Nylander
Yeah.
just consistently ripping up the Panthers defense, which, is it possible? Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm saying it's,
I won't believe it until I see it in the playoffs, but I know that they are capable of it deep down.
yeah. I mean, they're up 1-0. Like the odds are in Toronto's favor at this point to win the series. I think Florida will get game 2, and yeah, it's going to come down to, again, the neutral zone. Can Florida absolutely stifle softer guys like Marner, like Matthews? Nylander did play very good in that first game. That's really what it's going to come down to. Can they bring the physicality that I thought Ottawa was really going to be able to bring? Didn't really happen exactly, but Florida is proven in that regard. That's going to be the biggest thing, and just being able, hopefully that third, because like the difference again, Tampa, when they didn't have Hagel, they didn't have Bjorkstrand, the third line difference between Florida and Toronto in this series as well is going to be like night and day. So that's their big advantage. As long as they don't take dumb penalties and guys get suspended, I still really like Florida in the series.
Agreed.
All right, Washington versus Carolina. 3, 2, 1.
Carolina
Canes in 7.
6.
I'm going 7 across the board. I probably would have went with Florida in 6 before the last night, though. Carolina, yeah. I think Carolina, especially the power play waking up for them, although they did play an injured Devils team. Devils had like the 4th best penalty kill in the regular season, and Carolina went from 18.7% of the regular season to 31.7% against the New Jersey Devils, so that was very encouraging. I'm not saying we're going to get goal per game Svechnikov, but him really waking up in that first series against the New Jersey Devils was so encouraging. Not just the goals, but 64% expected goals percentage at 5-on-5. Aho obviously looked good. Jarvis is doing his thing. And I do slightly like Carolina's defense core more than Washington. Washington clearly has an advantage. If I don't know, is Anderson going for game 1? I'm not 100% sure, but even if so, I'd take Logan Thompson over Carolina. Or over Carolina starter. I think I just go with Carolina, the more recently experienced team, and I think the better team at 5-on-5.
Yeah, I mean, as I brought up earlier, Washington's penalty kill was really not great in that Montreal series. So if Carolina is going to be testing them, they could end up with a power play goal a game. That could be a big difference. I've been consistently critical of Andrei Svechnikov as a playoff underperformer, really an overall underperformer. So to see him and Aho and Jarvis perform at such a high level does give me some confidence there, even if I think beating the Hospital Devils doesn't really tell us anything about how built for a cup run they are. But yeah, it's really just kind of a vibe thing for me. The vibe being usually teams that have phenomenal regular seasons out of the blue when they're not in a competitive window. The second round tends to be
Vancouver last year, but they're more legit than
last
Vancouver.
year.
They're more legit.
Calgary, 3 or 4 years ago with the Kachuk as core there. Yeah. It seems like second round is usually a plateau for those sorts of teams, and they gain their valuable experience. And I do think Washington could come back next year. They'll regress in the regular season, but having playoff experience, they could come back stronger in the playoffs. But really, that's just a whole lot of words for I don't trust that Washington has the depth to them. I don't trust that they have the defense that Carolina has. Washington will win Coach of the Year, but I don't trust them to figure out Brindamore's system and break him down.
Yeah, but yeah, Carolina usually folds once they reach like a real elite goaltender. I really like Logan Thompson. He was extremely elite in the first half of the season, but I'm not sure that their finishing problems are going to get exposed by someone like Logan Thompson. And yeah, I really don't have that hot of a take or like a deep read on the series. They're two very well-coached teams. Don't really have any like clear identifiable weaknesses like maybe some of these other series. So yeah, I'm just going to trust Carolina that's been there, done that, more recent. Sorry, I don't have like an in-depth breakdown on this. If Carolina plays to their best ability, I think that they're gonna take care of it. There's no notable injuries besides Anderson, and even he's like day to day. So we're gonna move on to that one. Dallas for the entire Metro of this year's playoffs. It's got like whatever. Watch like the winner of this go on to win the Stanley Cup though. Dallas versus Winnipeg. Talking about like the hockey gods with this. I think let's do it first. 3, 2, 1. Dallas in 6. I'm going to give Winnipeg a couple games. Might be going to Winnipeg game 5, so hopefully they don't lose a series there. But yeah, speaking about like the most hockey gods thing, it would be so ironic if Dallas, after winning without their best defenseman and their best or second best forward, then they get those guys back and lose to a team that doesn't have their best defenseman and best forward. But yeah, like if Scheifele, if Morrissey even miss a couple games in this series, it's going to be so hard to overcome, man. Like they were struggling against the St. Louis Blues, and Montgomery's an amazing coach, had a great game plan, just blitz Hellebuck in his crease. I trust DeBoer to follow up on that, park Jamie Benn, and just be an absolute menace in terms of that. And yeah, it's just not going to be any easier for the Winnipeg Jets, who just had such. I guess both teams did have an emotional first round series, but I think Dallas probably builds on that by getting guys back. Meanwhile, Winnipeg kind of plateaus, and if not, goes down. They do have home ice. That's definitely an advantage to a degree, but I'm not sure Kyle Connor will be able to will this forward core like he was in the first round series against such a good team. There is such a deficiency in terms of that right side defense. Ehlers and Connor could go nuts, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I laid out my skepticism of Winnipeg pretty clearly in my review of that first round series. I think I every single position group, Dallas is better than Winnipeg right now, given Hellebuck's playoff struggles until proven with a consistent track record otherwise. As said, if you're without Josh Morrissey, I don't trust Neil Pionk for a second to fill in for a playoff series. As previously said, I don't think Nikolai Ehlers is going to pop off in this series because he does not seem to be 100% healthy right now. As you previously said, this center depth is very, very weak offensively behind Scheifele. You have some solid all-around guys in there, but you really don't have anyone who can put points on the board at will the way a Scheifele can. Nemesnikov and Lowry are nice players. They are not offensive juggernauts by any stretch.
Meanwhile, you got Hintz, Duchesne, Johnston down the middle for Dallas.
Yeah, really. And everyone, I think maybe not everyone, most people at the beginning of the playoffs would have said in the first place that Dallas is a better on-paper team than Winnipeg. The one advantage Winnipeg was supposed to have in a hypothetical second-round matchup is, well, Colorado will really beat up Dallas, and the winner of that will be so beat up for the second round series. Meanwhile, Winnipeg can cruise by. And Winnipeg ended the first round playing more minutes than Dallas, having more injuries than Dallas. I will be shocked if Winnipeg wins this series. This is the series where I frankly can't imagine being wrong. Wow. I don't see any way that the Jets win this.
I'd say it's like 66% Dallas, 30, maybe 70-30, honestly. Yeah, it's firmly, the Stars would have to fumble this. Jake Ottinger would have to have a really bad series. That's the other fun storyline with this series. Like, who could potentially start in 2026 might be on the line with this. If Connor Hellebuyck continues to play this bad, Jake Ottinger balls out like he did in that Game 7. But yeah, Jets, it's great that they got out of the first round. This playoff run is somewhat of a success after that. I wouldn't call it some kind of big success, but with their injuries, with Dallas getting healthy, it's probably the end of the line. Build on it next season, but you're likely out this round. And then we're going to finish it up with Edmonton versus Vegas. 3, 2, 1. Vegas in 5. Vegas in 7.
Ooh, okay.
I think McDry definitely steals 2 games. That's what they did in 2023 at least. Vegas did eventually figure out Draisaitl. I think Draisaitl had 6 goals in the first 2 games that they played in 2023, and then like 1 goal and 1 assist in the next 4 games. So I think that Karlsson, Eichel, their lines are going to be able to slow down McDry. You can't stop them. You can't really contain them. But if it goes 6 games and they only have 9 or 10 points, you live with that, honestly. And yeah, I just think what we talked about before, the overall depth of Vegas is stepping up in a big way. Edmonton did get big contributions from guys like Connor Brown, but I just expect Vegas's second line, third line to just feast on the Edmonton Oilers on their second, third pair, second, third line. And in that, there is a gap. Even though I think that Adin Hill has been lackluster and a lot of people overrate Adin Hill, he's still just far, far and away better than Pickard. And even in terms of coaching, Cassidy versus Knobloch, I like Knobloch a decent amount. Give me Cassidy all day. I think that you're a little bit crazy for just like completely counting out Edmonton just because they do still have 2 of the best players in the NHL. But yeah, I think Ekholm is just such a huge loss. The X factor here is definitely Darnell Nurse. He played like a doofus in the first 3 to 4 games. They were able to overcome it, and he was pretty solid in the final 2 games. If he can not be Ekholm, but be 80% of Ekholm, 85%, they're going to have a real shot in the series, as well as Wallman's going to have to step up in a big way offensively and defensively. But nah, it's just too much for Edmonton right now.
I'm not completely counting Edmonton out.
It's not a Winnipeg?
No, I can't see Winnipeg winning. I can see Edmonton winning. It's possible I'm wrong on this one. It's just such a flawed roster without Ekholm. There are so many flaws, and they're huge flaws, and they're obvious flaws. The fact that we literally just saw the Vegas Knights go through the whole process of, the series is starting a little bit rough because their top line is killing us. Okay, make the adjustment, complete shutdown the last few games. Being able to go from that into playing a team that's built similarly, but with a much, 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 much worse defense, I would feel really good about for Vegas. I think that Eichel and Stone have finally found their rhythm in the last 2 games of the last series. And if you can keep that up, this could really result in some big scoring from them. I have to think Noah Hannafin will end up being better in the second series than he was in the first. He was a non-factor against Minnesota. Aiden Hill, like you said, is overrated, but still far, far better than Edmonton's goalies. It's just, if the Oilers are going to win this, they're going to need like the absolute peak of last season McDry. The
against the LA Kings last year, when they had like 17 points or something.
More than like a full 2 point per game each if they're going to win this, because they don't have anything else that makes me think they can get past Vegas.
Yeah, they're not only that, like I think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to have to step up in a big way. He's kind of been a ghost in prior playoff runs. He's going to have to go for 6 or 7 points in this series for them to have a chance. Evander Kane is going to have to be a physical menace out there.
Bouchard needs to play defense. Bouchard showed up phenomenally in a couple games in the Kings series, but honestly, with how many bad turnovers and bad coverages he made, I think the Kings series was a net zero for Bouchard. He probably was directly responsible for as many goals against as he was directly responsible for goals scored.
Yeah. Oh, I saw him on like Conn Smythe rankings, and it's like, like game 4 he came up clutch, but also in game 2, a game where they lost by 1 goal, he literally coughed up 2 goals. So if he doesn't do that, they actually complete the game, the comeback, and don't have to be potentially down 3-1 in that moment. Yeah, it's Bouchard. It's a given. Like I didn't even mention him because like no shit, he needs to be the best defenseman in this series. He needs to be better than Shea Theodore. He needs to be better than Alex Pietrangelo. But like the big 3 of defensemen of the Bouchard, Nurse, Wallman versus Vegas, that just so firmly goes in Vegas's direction. And it's honestly the fact that Edmonton's already ruling Ekholm out for this round means he's not coming back till late in the Western Conference Finals, maybe even Stanley Cup Finals. So yeah, I'm definitely higher on Edmonton than you, but this is probably going to be a Vegas win in 6, maybe 5 games.
I think this will be the most entertaining series.
I think
watching the games, this one will be the most fun, even if it's not a long series.
Yeah, and we're talking about Eichel like having a slow start. Not saying he didn't give a shit against the Wild, but you know that he's going to be ready to go right out of the gate against his former 2015 draftee. Not to prove that he's better than him or anything, but like there's a lot more hype and expectation in this matchup, and they're going to need him at his absolute best. And he has been so damn good in the playoffs the last 2 years.
It's they have the experience, they have the talent. I dare I say, I don't think Vegas should be considered the favorite by anyone to win the cup, but I do think right at this minute they're my cup pick.
Yeah, you had him as your cup final pick, so
I
that
did.
Makes sense.
I stand by that,
and especially considering Florida's down 1-0 right now. It depends. If Dallas, you got to see if Robertson and Heiskanen are ready to go in game 1. I'd probably pick Dallas right now because I do think that's an easier matchup for this. And on top of the fact they're just so deep across the board. But yeah, it's right now it's Vegas or Dallas would probably be my top 2. But yeah, you got anything else or?
I think that's the show.
Okay,
that was a long one.
Our longest podcast. A lot of shit to talk about. Yeah, we'll hopefully get back to every single week. It's been like 10 days that we kind of been doing it, just because I've been moving and shit. But thank you guys for watching. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Go follow us on all the socials. We'll probably involve you guys with some hot takes next week or something like that, or do a Would You Rather. Peace.